In this version of Brainpower, we are going to be talking about the L&D AI ecosystem. Let's go. Hello, friends. It's Josh. Hope you're doing well. Well, today we are going to take a little adventure through the way artificial intelligence shows up throughout the whole entire learning and development ecosystem. And it's pretty vast. I can see why many of you may be confused as to what's going on out there. I know that daily I am inundated by updates that are occurring throughout every platform and every tool that we use to help support our audience members and improve human performance. And it is taxing. And so hopefully today I can clear the air and give you some guidance as far as how to approach the way that AI shows up throughout all the different tools that we use, and as I mentioned, the platforms that we have access to. Now, keep in mind that the document that I'm going to show you here, you will be able to download it. I don't have it teed up just yet because I have been traveling, and so my time has been compressed doing conferences and things like that. But eventually, this weekend, I will go ahead and post up to my website /Brainpower the actual document that we are going to go over. Okay, so just be patient. If you want to screenshot it, hey, go for it. Okay, so I appreciate you being patient as I tee things up in regards to the download. Okay, now with that, let's go ahead and jump into the content for today. Now, what I'm going to share with you here is, again, what will be um, available via the website. Again, you'll be able to download it. If you want to screenshot it now, you can. I'll be zooming in and whatnot. And I know it looks like a lot. Okay, it looks like a lot. But I am going to break down each part of this ecosystem and give you my take on what I believe is happening and how it will impact you and the way that you show up in your role and what you do, again, each and every day to assist your business and help your associates out. All right. Well, first, let me give you the general overview of this document and how it's structured. Starting up at the top, and I'm going to be highlighting here. Starting up at the top, this is our platform, right? So throughout your whole entire business, there is some core platform that's being used for document storage, knowledge management, tools, that kind of thing, right? And then we then cascade down to the human capital management system. Now, depending upon the size of your organization, this could be all kinds of different tools or all kinds of different platforms, or it could be one unified platform. Then we have a learning platform. This could be an LMS, LXP. We have content platforms. So think like LinkedIn, Open Sesame, Pluralsight, those types of platforms that are used to round out any custom training that you are there to support. Content engines. This is going to be an interesting discussion because content engines deal with the tools that you use today that will eventually be AI driven, and you won't be authoring as much. So if you love a timeline and you love making a slide, well, it's going to change, and I'll get into that. We then have more tactical ways that AI shows up towards the bottom. And I think what I'm going to do is actually start at the bottom and work my way up to round out this overview. So down here at the bottom, we have prompts and instructions. And there's a maturation process that is occurring. And I see this with my customers and I see it out there in the marketplace. When I go to conferences and talk to my peers, I get an idea of what's happening. Much of this is not at scale at this point, but it is happening. And so we have this maturation. Let me see if I can zoom in down here of prompts that eventually go into a library that merge into a content workflow that go into an automation that eventually becomes an agent. I know that's a lot. So stick around because I will go over the details of how that shows up and how you can begin working towards experimenting or trying these types of functionalities. Okay. So again, that's just a big overview. I first want to go and start up at the top and talk about the business platform. And I have a sample vendor in here, Microsoft. Now, for many organizations, it usually falls into one of three camps. It's Microsoft, Google Business, or a whole bunch of free tools, right? And so you first need to take a look at who that vendor is that is controlling the whole enchilada, the entire platform within your organization. And today I'm just going to focus in on Microsoft, but many of the activities and functionalities that Microsoft is implementing via AI is being mirrored by Google. And I would imagine that if you're using free uh, software, free platform-based tools, that it the same thing is going to happen, right? But let's just pause for a moment and think about what happened like during COVID, right? So there was a moment where for many of our organizations, we had to shift and pivot very quickly towards some type of online meeting software, right? So with Microsoft, it was Microsoft Teams. And then with Google, you have their online meeting platform, Google Meet. And so we had to go and we had to propagate that throughout our whole entire organization, spin people up on how to use it and how to use it properly. And it was a thing. Now, the way I'm tying this into AI is that these organizations, Microsoft, Google, are now putting into the tools that we use day in and day out, like a meeting software or our office software, like Excel, PowerPoint, Word, or docs, sheets, right? Or slides. And so what does that mean as a learning and development professional? Well, it's going to impact the way that we will interview or gain information about the efforts that we're working on. For example, let's say that you are tasked with supporting a new system or a new standard SOP, right? Standard operating procedure. There we go. Well, it usually involves SME interviews. And if we use Microsoft Teams or Google Meet for a SME interview, well, now we can use AI to get a transcription of that and even associate actions with it, or grab the transcript and use ChatGPT or another large language model to identify skill gaps or learning opportunities. Or is it environmental, right? Maybe it's not even a training issue. So we can then use it for performance consulting, right? But again, you wouldn't think about using those types of tools out of the gate if they were not AI enabled. I mean, yeah, transcript was already there, but now transcripts show up different when you have access to AI. So you kind of see where this is going. The same thing with the tools you use day in and day out to help organize your training content. Microsoft Word to create storyboards, PowerPoint to actually create content, or even Excel to organize. Now with AI within those tools, You will be able to expedite the content creation process or use AI as a writing partner in Word with Copilot, or even with SharePoint and OneDrive, leveraging the Microsoft platform to index your files, your folders, to begin having conversations within Word about those documents. It just shows up different. And again, for many of us, we are still learning about these capabilities. Those capabilities change significantly week over week. And it's also a massive behavior change. You have your way of working, and then all of a sudden we have these capabilities that we didn't have before. And it's very radical to like pause what you're doing, take a step back, course correct, use a new amazing feature or functionality that is across your ecosystem, and then change your workflow moving forward. Because you're in the heat of battle, right? It's very difficult to do that. And so watch the horizon and be mindful what's occurring on the platform level with all the tools that you have access. And I didn't even get into like Power Automate or automations and agents that are on these platforms. I'll talk about that later when we get into agents. All right. So that is the business platform. You'll want to itemize out how you are currently using those tools. Again, if we're referring to Microsoft, like Teams, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, even Power BI, if you're using dashboards. What AI functionality has been introduced? And then how can you rethink the way that you use those tools today? With it being AI enabled, how does that change your workflow? You may have to talk to your peers or have a meeting with your team and get ideas, because it may not be apparent. Again, when you are talking about multimodal capabilities and thinking about working with images and audio and video differently, things just show up in a radically different way, like taking a video transcript and then transforming it into another form of media or multiple forms of media, like a job aid. Being able to take 5 SME interviews at the same time and then working with the model to identify skill gaps, training opportunities, again, environmental issues, that kind of thing. All right. So that is the business platform. Let's move on down to the human capital management system. Now, this is one of the more fascinating areas as far as AI and how it impacts learning and development. We think about that dance between HR and L&D, and typically the points of intersect are new hire training, modification of roles, skill gaps that are then formed from that role modification, and then how those skill gaps can be closed. So, again, talent management. And then also getting knowledge about general HR practices within our organization, like where do I find my 401k information, and how do I work with the platform to, do the typical HR type transactions. So the one thing that is like the rub here for me that I see happening in the marketplace, and this is going to be extremely confusing because it is confusing for me because I don't know how it's going to shake out, is skills. Everybody is talking about skills and creating a skill taxonomy, skill ontologies, and incorporating that into their platform, like it's going to show up a certain way. And not just with human capital management systems. I'm also seeing this with LMS vendors. We have seen this effort before where companies have attempted to boil the ocean and itemize out all the skills across their whole entire organization, their whole company. And it is a losing effort. It's a losing battle because we all know that skills, roles, jobs, tasks change depending upon current business environment. many of the roles that we have within our organizations and the tasks that those roles perform change over time. Like, like 2 years ago, was anyone tracking prompt engineer or prompt designer? No. Now there are roles where that particular skill is needed. Now, the way I see this shaken out, via AI, is organizations leveraging the functions of a human capital management to scan what's happening out in the marketplace, and are there new roles or skills that are being used to get certain tasks done to propel the business forward or certain businesses forward. So you can, look to competitors or similar industries to see what's happening or what they're doing, and use AI to scan, and then, bring back a report like, hey, check this out, that kind of thing. Now, in regards to new hire training, let's just bring it back to, like, some more of the tactical implementation within a human capital management system. So with new hire training, we have massive opportunities here to leverage AI to help us keep things current and to create programs to where the initial information can be easily created. The content creation process can be compressed down using AI. And that's going to allow us to create programs or interactions where it's more human to human, right? And also being able to create content that is very personal or personalized based upon the individual and their background, or a learning path. Having a seasoned salesperson come into an organization and taking like foundational sales training or sales process or whatever the case may be, it just doesn't have to be a sales role, but I've been in a situation where you go into an organization, you take new hire training, and you're just trying to blow through it. Like, I got it. Like, I've been here before. I'm like 15, 20 years into my role. All I need is like the 10 or 15% about the uniqueness of this organization, and I'm good. Well, again, with AI, we'll be able to go ahead and compress the creation time down and create unique experiences or learning paths to expedite that onboarding so that it's more impactful, and that there are opportunities to schedule more one-on-one time, which is really what it's all about, right? So for a frontline salesperson to actually do a drive along, or for somebody who's a frontline worker to shadow somebody in that role, that's really where it's about. I mean, yeah, you have to get your organizational information in there, but I see this showing up better. I see it showing up more organized within these platforms. So whether it's delivered via the human capital management system or through an LMS, I think that you're going to uh, see some advancements there. Let's go ahead and move on to learning platforms. And with a learning platform, learning paths, right? And being able to go in and organize this information via AI, or creating automated tutors, chatbots, and coaches with existing information that is sitting inside the learning platform. The only problem is that when you have information in a SCORM package, kind of like baked in there. And now I know there's tools in the marketplace to introspect and look inside of a SCORM file, but there could be all kinds of garbage in there. So there may be opportunities in the future to use AI on these platforms to take old content but create new AI driven experiences. Again, specifically, like, I'm thinking about a chat bot. So you want to have a conversation about that particular content, or more importantly, a coach that will use a Socratic conversation about that topic and dial it in based upon the information that's on the LMS or LXP, to then have a unique or personalized conversation with an individual to give them reps, right? To go ahead and not give them answers, but to have a conversation that will make them think about what they just learned and how to apply it immediately. So it should be interesting to see how LMS and LXP vendors leverage generative AI for these new unique experiences, whether it be a personalized learning journey or creating new content on the fly. Let's talk about that for a moment. One other piece of functionality that I see vendors putting out there is the ability to take information. It could be, again, like I mentioned before, 5 SME interviews, a standard operating procedure, a manual, you name it. You upload it, and then you get a course, right? So you're going to get like an outline generated from the materials you upload, and then it creates some type of mobile enabled, scrollable course with interactions and quizzes and all the above. And I do have concerns about that. So, one is we're always constrained for time. Some people are just inherently lazy. I have my moments. I think we all do. And I'm afraid of how that's going to show up. You know, when you have the ability to go ahead and create content at scale, there are pros and cons. And I think that, you know, when you start seeing these types of functionalities begin to take shape within your current environment, like I fully see, you know, I can see that your current vendor is going to have this type of functionality where you can create an instant course and then it appears on the platform. Make sure that you still have human, AI, and human. That human off the back end with these auto-generated courses is critical, whether it be a SME review, checking the interactions, all that. Everything needs to be vetted out before it goes out the door. Also, who has access to this capability? What does it mean if subject matter experts are now creating content? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So it's going to be interesting to see how AI workflows are impacted by additional tools, creation tools that are then baked into an LMS or LXP. Now, again, these vendors that I have, you know, like listed here, those are just samples. I don't have any alignment to any of these companies. They're just like top of mind or what I've thought about out of the gate. So again, there's no like relationship that I have with any of these vendors, just for clarification. Hey, let's get down to content platform right here. Now, when I talk about a content platform, what I'm referring to here are those vendors you go to where you want to round out your whole entire learning experience. You know, the joke is, hey, we're going to go ahead and have all of these learning opportunities, but nobody takes advantage of it, right? Or it's used very minimally. Now, I think that's all going to change because you take in like LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, Open Sesame, with their implementation of AI, the way that it shows up, and I've had an opportunity to have some deeper, longer conversations with a few of these vendors, is I see that if you clearly identify what your skill gap is or what your intention is when you go into the system, that the system will then go in and create unique experiences for you that are highly focused. You know, for many of us, when we're experiencing a course in one of these platforms, what do? We get through it as quickly as possible. Scrub, 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 read, scrub, that kind of activity. I mean, if you do have the opportunity to actually take a course from beginning to end and watch every single video, hey, good for you. I mean, that's really the way it should be done. But realistically, we have just a finite amount of time and we want just certain bits of information. So fast forward, AI is going to be used to go ahead and index all of the information on these platforms. And again, based upon the skill gap or your interest or behavior change, whatever the case may be, will create new, unique videos or experiences that are automatically edited together to give you exactly what you want, right? Now, I don't have a gauge as far as when or how this is going to show up, but it makes sense that this is the way that it's going to appear in the future. And with that, there's probably a really good possibility that the amount of usage over time will increase because of that personalization and because time won't be wasted and there's more of a focus on what you need as opposed to creating content for everybody and trying to cast a wide net. So that is a content platform. Let's now go down and talk about a content engine. Now, what the heck is a content engine? Well, believe it or not, you are using today the precursors of content engines. Any tool that you've used that has a timeline, a slide, right? That is going to be a content engine. Now, I have, for over 30 decades, used these tools, and over the years, I've been enamored with doing really cool things in video editors or going in and programming and creating amazing experiences in slide-based environments like Storyline, Captivate. But what happens when artificial intelligence can create everything for us, right? And maybe you only have to adjust or change 5% of what's being created. And so the way I see things happening, if you're using a tool like Rise, Storyline, Captivate, Lectora, Beyond Go, all of these content creation tools, that they are going to be transformed into creation engines. And one functionality that you are going to see in mass over the next 6 months are avatars. You've seen them, right? So those vendors would be HeyGen, Synthesia, Colossian, and a few others. There's some new entries in there. It's becoming crowded. That's all going to be automated. Like those platforms are going to be leveraged by our creation tools to automatically create experiences. One site that I want you to go check out. Again, I don't have any alliances here. I'm very vendor agnostic. Is Hippo, as if the animal, hippo.ai. And I don't have an example queued up, so you're going to have to check it out yourself. But with Hippo, you can go in and upload a PowerPoint deck, and it creates a TikTok-style video with an avatar, and the edits are okay. The script is just okay. The overall presentation, it's just okay. But it's the worst it's ever going to be. And I think it's going to give you a snapshot of the future, like a glimpse into the future of taking a document and then having amazing content on the other side. Now, along the way, there is going to be a tremendous amount of pain points. I'm not like pulling punches here. Like, you're going to go ahead and lean in on a tool that's AI driven for content creation, and it's going to fail. So again, this is going to be a process. Yep. And so, Laura, awesome question. Would it be a content platform that would allow you to maybe put in a handful of related images and other images could be created? Totally. What's interesting, let's just for a moment talk about Adobe and Adobe Captivate. Now, so it's Adobe. What else do they have? They have Firefly. And in a demonstration that I saw, when it auto-created a course, so Captivate as a course creation engine, it leveraged Firefly to generate copyright-free images, AI generated. You could then select an image and re-prompt against it to create a new image. Now, it's entirely feasible, and it's already part of an image creation workflow to use a reference image to generate a new AI image. So, Laura, what you're talking about is, yes, that's in play. Now, I haven't seen that specific functionality within a creation engine yet, but that's not that big of a leap. Okay, thanks for your question. Thank you. All right, let's go down to the bottom. Now, I'm going to start all the way down here with prompts and instructions, and I'm going to work my way up because there's going to be some collision here that's going to occur between a content engine and autonomous agents and automations. And I'll get to that in just a moment. All right. So let's go down to prompts and instructions. Well, for many of you, this is where you're at. You are going into ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and you're doing your prompts to do some of the mundane work, maybe even writing an email, doing multiple choice questions, identifying learning objectives, creating a storyboard even if you want to, right? And it starts there with a prompt. Now, odds are you are trying to create a prompt that fits very specifically into your workflow to help reduce time or have a AI as a thought partner with problem solving, maybe doing a learning needs analysis, and you're rocking and rolling. Now, here's the maturation that I see in the marketplace. Once you have a killer prompt, like one that is just like, whoa, I just cannot believe what I'm able to produce out of a language model, well, you're going to want to store it or even share it with your peers. So then we get into the prompt library, right? So with the prompt library, this is going to stop that like recreating the wheel effect, like trying to create short prompts. But you're going to go back into the library and go, man, I need to go ahead and create a very detailed video script based on a formula like emotional pull, prime, content, review, call to action. That's like a typical video script. Well, that's going to show up in a prompt that's going to be in a library that can be shared across your organization. So individuals can take a PDF, upload it, boom, and they got a video script, right? You can see how advantageous of it. And hey, if you want to check out a prompt library for learning and development, just head out to my website /150 prompts. It's now up to 250. Sign up and you get access to a range of prompts that will handle various tasks within an L&D workflow. So take advantage of that. So we have the library that then matures into a content workflow. Now, a content workflow is nothing more than a series of identified prompts that could be used across different models. For instance, you're going to use ChatGPT to create a video script, but then you may go to Midjourney or use Dolly and use a different prompt to create an image to support that script. But you'll store all of those prompts within a single Excel spreadsheet or a Notion document or in Monday.com, wherever you have a storage at. And those prompts are then part of a workflow. This is where it gets a little crazy. Because as we begin to mature our prompts and mature our workflows, they must be documented, they must be maintained, and there's continuity, right? Well, who's going to do that? I mean, if you have your Uber AI geek in your department rocking and rolling, they got all these prompts, they got all these, platforms to do the prompts to, and then they leave the organization. Who's going to take that over? Who's going to maintain that? That's the same thing for automations and agents when I get into it, right? So there is a little bit of collision starting to happen here in the process between doing the work yourself or leaning on a vendor that is going to represent this workflow in the tool that they have. Let me give you an example. For those of you not familiar, Beyond is a great tool for doing cartoons. It's timeline based. And there is a AI enabled tool within Beyond called Beyond Go as of this recording, to where you can go ahead and prompt and it will create a script, and then based upon the subjects or the nouns and verbs in the script, create a cartoon or animation that you just have to edit maybe between 30 and 40%, let's say, right? Well, now I can go in and create a prompt and put it into a prompt library and a prompt workflow to do that same type of work. Now, obviously, with a tool like Beyond, it's going to happen faster, but you're leaning on the prompts that they're using in the background to create that content, right? So you lose autonomy, you lose agency, but you have a tool that has a using the same identify workflow that you would go through, but it's in the tool. And I see this right here being the conundrum of should we have agency and use our prompts and our prompt workflows and eventually automations and agents to do the work, but we have to maintain that? Or are we going to lean on a vendor that has a tool with the same identified workflow, but we don't know what's under the hood? And if we're spinning our wheels and we get poor content over and over again, are we burning time? Like, do we want to have ownership of that? An example that I can think of is using Microsoft 360 Copilot in PowerPoint, to where you go in and you prompt on, let's say it's just a general knowledge topic like leadership, and you prompt and it creates a having difficult conversations deck. All right, well, let's say the content is decent, but we need to make it specific to our organization. So I need to change that 20%. We don't really want to talk about that topic. So I'm going to take that out. I got to make it brand enabled. I got to make those adjustments. How much time is it really saving, right? In some instances, yeah, it'll save plenty of time. But in others, you may be spending more time making corrections and adjustments on an AI generated piece than just doing the work yourself. And I have a feeling that is going to be an issue as we move forward. Now, over time, the vendors will get feedback from the users and it'll get better, right? So we're going to be kind of in a weird gray area for a while here, where you'll be balancing having agency and doing your own prompts, your own libraries, your own workflows, and then comparing, hey, what can this tool do for me when it creates AI generated content? Okay, let's take it one step further. So now we get into automations. And this is where you have a workflow or a prompt that is absolutely amazing. And you're going to put that into some type of workflow that is a multiplier, meaning that you're going to use like multiple steps to get some deep work done. And it begins to really crush the productivity numbers down, right? Which is a good thing. Let me give an example. So I mentioned earlier a formula for a video script: emotional pull, bring them in, prime on the topic, then you have your content, which from a cognitive load standpoint, it's going to be low cognitive load. You then review the information and then a call to action or emotional push out, right? That is a very fundamental educational video formula. But let's say that I have a project where I need to be knocking out these scripts in mass, and I have access to subject matter experts, and they can go ahead and identify what the associate needs to learn, maybe even identify some learning objectives if I work with them on how to do that, or give them the tool to identify that. Well, it can just show up different if I have a form or some type of point of entry. It could even be like a series of questions that then goes into a transcript that then goes into a GPT that then creates a video script, right? Like there's like wild different ways of thinking about automating how we work. And so I can create this form that gets fed into a Google Sheet. The entries in the Google Sheet, like in each cell, are then part of a Chat GPT prompt that generates a video script that's then emailed to me or placed back into Excel or Google Sheet for production or review. Wild. And by leveraging platforms like Zapier, um, Make.com, or even creating GPTs in Chat GPT, we begin to see automations come into play. I know business owners that have dozens of automations running their business, creating certificates or handling student registrations, whatever the case may be. But they have to be maintained. They break. I've experienced it where I've made an automation and you look at the transcript of activity and you notice that, hey, between midnight and 2 p.m., this went down, or a model changes and the prompts are delivering different types of content or quality, or a new model's on the market. I need to go back in and identify a new model within that automation. So there's maintenance, right? So we get back to that of going in and maintaining these automations. Who does that? What if that person leaves the organization that knew how to use Zapier or Make.com or Power Automate on the Microsoft platform? Good question. Well, let's continue because there's one more iteration of maturation within generative AI, and that is agents. And you may begin to hear this term of agentic as an adjective describing agent-based behavior. Now, an agent is a software program that leverages an automation or models to do deep work at scale. Imagine having 100 instructional designers go through a learning needs analysis and come up with a learning journey. So you're amplifying what you do, even automating it. And this is where the conversation about our role as learning and development professionals and doing more orchestration and analysis comes into play. Because I have a feeling that these agents are going to be used at scale eventually. Again, I don't have a timeline for you, to where using content engines, remember I told you that there was a relationship there, right, between an agent and a content engine to eventually feed into a content platform or a learning platform. So in regards to orchestration, you'll have all that worked out. Whether you have a specific tool, you have an agent or some type of automation, and it's automatically creating content that could be borrowed from a content platform or LMS to create a new personalized experience. You're orchestrating. And then as that information is used by your, frontline workers or your associates, well, we've got to measure, right? Did we move the needle? What's the KPI we're tracking? Um, and so it could be a dashboard that's automatically spun up in Power BI by an agent to go ahead and track call volume or how data entry is being done. Is there dirty data being entered in? Whatever the case may be. So it's completely fascinating when you think about what's happening in the marketplace and how it's going to impact our profession. So there it is. That is the overview of the learning and development ecosystem. And I can tell you that it's incredibly difficult for me to keep track of all of these touch points. I'm more like intimately involved with the tactics, so prompts and putting it in a library and then putting it in a workflow, making automation an agent, because that's under our control, right? I can control that. But what the vendors are doing and your tools and the platforms that we use, that's where there's a lot of noise. And I would suspect that for many of you, you will keep the current tools and platforms that you have and sit back and wait. How does AI show up? All the activity that's happening out there, it would be incredibly risky at this point to change vendors and especially change a platform. There'll be a few that recognize the benefits of an AI enabled human capital management system will jump out and make the switch and change. And that's going to happen. But I think for most of us, we're just going to stick and stay and check and see how AIification occurs in our tools and platforms, which, may be a safe bet for right now. We'll see, right? Hey, one last thing I forgot to mention, I just thought of it, is, in regards to skills, however you interface with like skill taxonomies and skill ontologies moving forward, my personal take is that skills should be assessed by independent organizations and tracked via blockchain. In other words, like as an associate, you will have vetted skills. So like maybe through an ATD credential or some other professional organization credential, those skills have been validated, and via blockchain, as you go from organization to organization, if you switch jobs, those skills are forever with you via blockchain. And I think that's the way to go. Again, I do have reservations about some of these organizations trying to index skills, and those skills change over time and degrade or modify or whatever the case may be. And I think inherently just issues with that. Heck, even within the skills that I have, if I don't use it, I lose it, right? For everything. So I may have a Camtasia certification, but I may only use 20% of the tool. And after I got certified, I may even forget what menu or what panel certain functionality is in, even though I was certified to know that information, right? So you get that. Anyways, that just came to mind, and I just wanted to just like throw that in there. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this extended episode, but it's a deep topic. And again, keep your eye on the horizon. I'm very hopeful that we will have tools and platforms that will help support what we do as professionals, and especially support human performance. And with that, I will catch you in the next episode. Take care.